Hello and welcome back to Goswick Lane. If you watched the last episode, we've got the same guys on. We couldn't get enough. We're talking about real estate and wanted to dive into some more stuff, real estate, business, all things attached to that. We've talked about, this show is kind of becoming like the business real estate investor type deals. I think that's kind of where our niche hits. But at the end of the last episode, there were some things that we wanted to get into. And one of those things is from a client's perspective. You know, as people buy houses or sell houses, most people that you guys probably deal with, they may only do that once, twice, maybe 3 times in their life. So it's not a process that they go through often.
Right.
If I'm a seller and I've never done this before, walk me through some of the pitfalls, the things that I need to know. Give me the nuggets of what I can do to make this process go smoother.
So the first thing I've noticed just in the short time I've been in it is...
Oh, by the way, if you didn't watch the last episode, I'm sorry. This is Bailey, and this is Tyler, and this is Janti. All right, go ahead, Bailey. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So a lot of people that are looking to buy houses, specifically first-time home buyers, which being younger is kind of seems... I get a lot of them, just being friends, mutual friends, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't know that you don't have to have the house listed to sell it. They don't realize that you can sell any house that is on the market as long as you use us exclusively.
Okay.
So I've had people call me that are like, "Hey, I know you can't sell this house, but do you think you can get me in contact with somebody?" And I'm like, I mean, I'm part of the Longview and Tyler MLS, so I can sell anything here. Then if, like, I know on the last show that you did with Janti, he talked about the Dallas MLS, and it's not hard to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we can sell any house that's on the market, off market. It doesn't matter.
Okay. That's a good point, and that I would have never thought that people would even think that. So that's a great point. Tyler, you got any nuggets?
Ooh, from the seller side?
Yeah, from the or the buyer. Somebody that's walking through the process that's never done it before.
If you're from the seller side, be upfront about anything that you know is wrong with the house.
Okay.
Sometimes they try and hide it.
Disclose the information.
And then it makes us look bad too because we don't tell the buyer about this stuff.
There's going to be an inspection.
Right.
Right? It's going to be found out.
Yep, most of the time. In the last market we were in, it's kind of shifted a little bit, but there wasn't as much. You had some deals that had no inspection periods on there, no option periods. But yeah, definitely be upfront about that kind of stuff because that can come back and bite you in the butt.
Okay.
From the buyer's side, make sure you're just working with an agent you trust 100%.
That's good. Listen, if you wouldn't go to lunch with these guys or girls, whoever your agent is, if you couldn't stand them long enough, or maybe even if you wouldn't go, I would put it so far as like if I wouldn't go on a hunting trip with him, then I wouldn't have him as an agent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if I can't stand this guy for more than 2 days, or the lady, whoever your agent is, then they're not the right one for you.
Yeah, because you're going to deal with this a lot.
Yeah.
30 or 45 days, depending on,
There's some personalities that just don't match.
Right.
And
but
that's okay.
for agents, too. There's
Yeah.
certain clients that we don't match up.
Have you ever turned down a client or pushed them to another agent?
I've turned down a client.
Okay. What's that conversation like?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's awkward, I'm sure.
it just sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And in this case, it just didn't work. And the schedules didn't match up, and sometimes they just are you have unrealistic expectations.
What do you do in the beginning of the process to set expectations? Because if you're not setting expectations, somebody else will set them for you. So what do you guys do on the front end to set expectations with your clients?
I would say it completely depends on the client and how you meet them. If it's on the phone and you meet them at the property for the first time, I usually have a conversation at the end of the property once we walk through everything. Just kind of tell them about me a little bit, what they should expect moving forward.
Let's do a run through. I'm your potential. You want me to be a seller or a buyer?
Buyer. Be the buyer.
Be the
All
buyer.
right, I'm the buyer.
Buyers
We
are
just
harder.
looked at the property. All right, man. So what are we doing, Tyler? What are we doing moving forward here? What's your process?
So first thing I would see, have they ever bought a home before?
Okay, I've never bought a home.
If you've never bought a home, so I usually walk through the process as far as all the details that go into it.
Okay. What are some of those details that I'm going to need to know?
So first off, if you do like the house, there's usually an earnest money deposit.
Okay, I love the house.
So say the house $300,000.
Okay.
In Texas, usually 1% of the property, so
Okay.
$3,000.
So it's coming out. Is that coming out of my pocket, or can the bank pay for that?
So it's usually out of your pocket.
Okay.
Yep. And then that goes towards your closing cost, or
Okay.
if you back out of the house after the option period, you could potentially lose that.
Okay.
And I always stress that because that is a
What's an option period?
I do too.
so
Yeah.
an option period is when you get the house inspected. It's
Now,
usually,
inspection. Is that something that I have to set up?
so it's usually out of the buyer's pocket.
Okay.
And that's one of the main. If you don't like the house for any reason, that's one of the main things out of your pocket that you do have to spend.
Okay. What's an inspection typically cost?
So around $350, $500 bucks.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
It depends because you can get add-ons, sprinklers, outdoor buildings, termite, all
Gotcha.
those things.
Okay.
And we're going to recommend that you do
Everything.
All of it. Okay.
And we normally do set up the inspection. The buyer pays for it. We'll call and
Okay.
schedule it.
Okay.
The
Buyer
words
gets to
that we
choose.
the words we use is what are those words?
Oh yeah,
What
you're
are
on the
those
spot.
words? What
We
are
reckon-
those words?
we
The
reckon-
words are
recommend
Bailey,
it.
he was
We-
asking you.
We recommend an inspection.
we
Okay.
we recommend an inspection. I can't tell you what
you should
inspector
use.
to
I
use.
can't tell you how many times
But
you
I-
told
but
me
I
that.
can tell you who I personally use.
I can't tell you how many times you've told me that. Of like, we recommend an inspection. Well, I ain't talking about we. I'm talking about you.
And people don't care. They're like you. And I also go as far as to tell the buyers, because I've had it come back on me. This is not my inspection. This is your inspection. You're paying for it. This
Yeah.
is your inspector.
Yeah, and we, from my end, from the investor side, we've just said no. I don't even need an inspection because
I do the same.
We're getting a deal, and we
Mhm.
know it, and we're buying this house as is. I don't need an inspection to tell me if I got to replace some electrical.
Right.
I know I'm going to have to replace.
Well,
some
and
stuff.
the inspections, they honestly a lot of times freak the buyers out. I mean,
They make the
They
house
really
look like
do.
it's falling apart.
yeah,
yeah. The last one I did, loose tiles. Well, that's an easy fix,
Yeah.
guys. You go in, you put a little grout in,
Yeah.
slap it back down. Rain caps. It's a rain cap.
right.
It's real
Just-
easy.
Just throw it on there.
There's 66 pages, and on every single page, there's multiple things wrong on
Yeah.
that page.
Okay.
So like I bought a house in Spring Hill. It was a 4-bed, 2.5. It was 1 year old, and it was like a 45-page inspection. And this brand new house sounded like it was going to cave in and
Yeah,
kill my entire family.
It's scary.
I mean,
it's scary.
you see, and that's a big part of our jobs is explaining the inspection and making them
that's good.
understand that it's not falling apart. Every house has its problems, and obviously, the older house you look at, the more problems it's going to have, the longer the inspection report's going to
Okay.
be.
That's
Well,
good.
and you have to. I always try to, if you have the time, call them in, go over the inspection report in person. Like Tyler said, I know if a report's going to be good or bad by the page numbers. If it's 35 pages, that means there's not a whole lot wrong.
That's good.
If it's 72, there's a bad report.
Yeah, we got some stuff to go through, guys. I feel like the last episode we did was like the idea of real estate. And it was like the appetizer. We're getting into some meat and potatoes now. It came out and it's steaming. This is good stuff.
Right. Well, and so if you ask me, you've asked these two about a seller and a buyer situation. If a seller comes to me and says, "Janti, I've never sold a house before," I say, "Well, first of all, when can I meet you at the property?"
Yeah.
I want to go walk through the property, get to know them. I take all the paperwork that's necessary, but I'm not pushy. A lot of agents will push it on them. If I feel like they'll tell me, "No, I want to list right now," or they're kind of hem-hawing. I say, "Look, I got this packet. I'm going to explain this to you. I'm going to leave it with you. You think about it. If you want to list it, cool. If you don't, that's cool too."
Yeah. I like that.
So I think having all your things together, I always tell people, I told Bailey, when you go to listen, take a sign with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you better get it in within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Per, you know the rules.
You'll get
Oh,
fined.
there's rules behind that.
Okay,
Right.
so
Okay.
It didn't
And I
used to
Get
be
fined
like that.
me.
and I almost,
Okay.
oh yeah, you did get a fine, didn't you? So I almost got fined on my first one. I didn't know that. I'm like,
So who goes around and is finding you?
There's
No
all
names.
kinds. Yeah, there's all kinds
Wait,
of
wait.
different
Other
peoples.
real estate agents are calling you in, aren't they?
It could be a real estate agent.
We're
It
not
could
gonna
be-
talk about that.
It could be a buyer.
You know
It
who
could
you
be a
are.
seller.
Yeah, you know who you know. Calm down. I'm getting too excited.
there are real estate police.
Yes. There are people out there who take it on themselves to be the real estate police, even though they aren't the real estate police.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that's in
hey,
any industry.
I get it. I tell people if you don't want to get a fine or do anything, kind
Follow
of
the
like
rules.
I told Tyler, just do it the way that we're
Yeah.
supposed to do it.
Play
Real easy.
Play by the rules. All right, so I'm your prospective buyer. I love the house. You talked to me about the inspection. Okay, the earnest money or the option money. Okay. You said something about an option period for this option money. What does that mean?
So the option period is typically as soon as you execute the contract, it's the next day. So as soon as everybody signs, it's dated. The option period starts the next day. So anywhere from, I would say, 1 day to 10 days, somewhere in there is typical.
And that gives the buyer time to have the inspection done so that you can go through the report, understand it, and see. Now what happens, like, if that inspection comes back and there's exponentially a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed, what happens there?
The option period is also the negotiation time. So if you want to drop the price a little bit, if the seller wants to drop the price a little bit, if they want to fix all the things that's wrong with it that the buyer wants fixed, that's the time that we negotiate and try and handle all that.
Okay, so at that point, if you come back and it's a 10-day option, and at day 8, we get this, or say day 5, we get this inspection back, we go through it, and I'm the buyer, and I'm like, man, it's going to take a lot of money to fix that. What's happening then? You're going back to the seller?
So first off, as soon as I get that inspection report, I usually set expectations with the potential buyer.
Okay.
Because if there's multiple things wrong with it and say it's $20,000, more than likely the seller's not going to fix everything.
Okay.
So you have to have that. You have to set those expectations up front. Like, hey, just to let you know, this may not all happen. I'm definitely going to try my best to get all this stuff done for you that you want fixed. And then after that, it's just negotiation process. From there, if everything gets worked out, moving on to rest. I mean, really the buyer after that, as far as getting their paperwork into the lender, is kind of a waiting period after that.
Okay. And that rolls you into, you went from option to what, Bailey?
You go option, and then after that, I mean, you're pending. Most of the time, you're waiting on appraisal to come back.
Okay.
And there's a few different contingencies where you can get your earnest money back, option period being one, and then you can make it contingent upon loan approval. So if the bank doesn't qualify, then you can get your earnest money back.
Okay.
And then you can also make
the seller's got to agree to that, though, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone has to sign off on that. So, I mean, you can make multiple contingencies. So.
Yeah. It's like doing any deal. There's a lot of options there, right?
There are.
You can work through the deal.
And it's just whatever you can get the seller to agree upon. Like the market that we're kind of transitioning out of, like they said, there was no option periods. I mean, you're running literally no option. You can still do an inspection, but it doesn't matter what it says. You have no option period.
Yeah.
You back out, you don't get your earnest money back, and you were competitive and paying $30,000-$40,000 over asking price. And we're kind of transitioning back to where buyers are getting option periods. There's not as many competing offers.
Yeah.
This is a buyer's time to buy a house. If you were looking to buy a house in the last 2 or 3 years and finally gave up, I mean, this is your time to shine.
So if this is your time to shine, but interest rates are up, what are you guys telling buyers?
Well,
Talk about interest rates.
Interest rates are really not. I mean, they're higher than they have been. But I mean, look, 10 years ago, this was the normal. We were just in a period where 2% interest rates just aren't a thing, and now we're back to the normal, and people are kind of stunned, waiting for them to go down, but. The way I see it, a lot of people that are waiting for interest rates to go down are the same people 3 years ago waiting for housing prices to go down, and they went up another 40%.
I mean, they're still waiting. And,
so, I mean,
he's right. I mean,
get in where you fit in. I mean, you can either jump in and ride the roller coaster. You can sit here and watch me ride the ride, and I can go up and sell, then come down and buy, then come back up and sell again.
Do y'all think that because interest rates are going? You change the affordability of a property is what happens with an interest rate. So you gotta, you're either changing your expectations as a buyer or a seller that your $300,000 house may sell for $250,000,
right?
Or from the same side as a buyer, you're trying to get that $300,000 at $250,000, or you're just looking at $250,000, right? Because most people make their buying assessment on what they can afford based on the monthly note.
Yeah.
Have you ever, besides cash deals, people that just have cash and said, I'm going to buy this house, so interest rate doesn't matter, is that the number one thing that people are making on the financial side of the decision, besides like liking the house and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of buyers that I actually work up the monthly payment before we even go see the house to make sure that they're comfortable with that and they're okay with that.
What's a 30-year right now interest rate on that?
7.25, I think.
7.25, 7.5, depending on your credit score.
What are commercial rates going right now? 20 years.
8.
Okay.
Well, 7.5 right now, but they may jump up to 8. I thought.
I think that I had one quote on an investment deal for one of my investors, and his bank quoted him 8. Now there's some hometown banks that are quoting 6.25.
Okay.
And that's probably not on commercial.
Yeah.
That's more of like duplex.
Okay.
And probably on an arm, not a fixed.
Yeah,
Okay.
that most of them are going to be on an arm. I think some of them are fixed for 5.
Okay.
But
I'm with you. Like we talked about in the last episode, who cares about the rate on the investor side of it? It is a piece of the puzzle. So I'm not gonna, who cares is a little bit of a strong statement, but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
yeah, if you're making money, what's the point? You're not paying the rate.
That's
Yeah.
right. And if you
It's that
have,
simple.
as an investor, and your buy box is, okay, I'm going to do this as an investment, and I want to make $350 per door cash flow per month. Okay, if everything lines up and your rate's 42%,
You buy it.
I mean, if it's
Yeah.
cash flowing, it's cash flowing.
and
That's
if you're making 350 and it's 42%, imagine it at 5%. You're going to make like $35,000.
Exactly.
yeah,
You
it's
see,
pretty insane.
And that's something else to think about on the investor view of things. Interest rates go up, normally so does rent. Because, I mean, like I just bought 2 sets of duplexes, 4 doors. I got a 5.75. I closed on those about a month ago. So naturally, I'm raising the rent because my payment is higher. So in order for me to cash flow, the rent's going to go up.
You have to.
Well, and it's not all about cash flow. He's the landlord. If the fence falls down, it's on him. If the AC breaks, it's on him.
Yeah.
The property taxes are on him. The roof's on him. Everything's on landlords. And so
Yes.
people don't understand it's not just about cash flow. We have to build up cash flow to make those repairs. That's
Yes.
why you're renting, because you don't want that burden
That's right.
to take that on.
That's right.
We're taking it on, but it's going to be at a cost.
And you may not, they may not also want the burden of having to make that commitment for a house, for paying the note for 30 years.
It is a huge commitment. And
Oh,
it
my
is
goodness.
very, very scary. But that's also why we recommend home warranties.
I like that.
When you're buying a
Recommend.
house. We recommend
said,
home
he said,
warranties.
guys, he said recommend.
Highly recommend
There
home
you go.
warranties.
Right. I mean, they can save you for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you can get a home warranty for say around $500, and just like inspections, there's add-ons you can do if there's a pool or a sprinkler system or a septic system. So I mean that covers you for up to a year.
and the seller doesn't have to just buy it; he can buy it.
What's
Exactly.
a typical home warranty cost? Is it a percentage of the sale?
No, it's about $500.
That's
500
it?
standard, yeah.
What does that cover? It covers all that stuff you just said?
AC, some plumbing, refrigerator,
oven.
appliances.
Can I buy a home warranty on a rehab deal?
Yes,
You can?
yes. But if you're thinking, hey, the AC's shot, no, the AC's got to work.
And
You got to get it up to. You have to get it up to speed.
Right.
Obviously.
you have to prove that whatever you're trying to get a claim on has worked at one point in time after you purchased the property.
Okay.
And there's caps on it. So like we had somebody come to our office and talk to us about home warranties. Somebody that was with it was Old Republic, and like AC, they have a cap on AC. So you're not going to go out and say, yeah, well, my AC just went out. I need $10,000 for an AC unit. But they just have different rules and regulations on caps and stuff like that. But it does help. It covers a lot of stuff.
Better than pulling it out of your pocket.
It is.
dang right.
And your deductible's really not that high.
That's
$75.
That's cheap. All right. So what are, like, you get through, we're going back to the setting expectations. You get through, we've talked about earnest money, option period, all those things, the inspection. We haven't talked about, we didn't talk about earnest money. Did we?
No, we touched on it.
We touched on
it. Okay.
But one very crucial part before you even go look at a house, when you get a lead, ask them if they are already pre-approved. Because if you're not pre-approved, that is very crucial. So if they're wanting to look at a $300,000 house, but they're only approved for $165,000, well, you're wasting time looking at
this
a
ain't gonna go
$300,000
well.
And
house.
this all goes back to how you got the lead. If it was over a phone call, if it's people you know.
You guys are qualifying people on the front end.
All the time.
Yep.
That's a good point. We had a business. I used to have a business. We did Christmas sliding, and after the first, it took us 2 years to figure this out, but we figured out that I was going out on sales calls, and we were only closing like 20%, maybe 10. I don't know. It was low. And we started qualifying people over the phone, basically giving them an example of prices of what this item cost or what it could cost them. And then our actual sales calls our sales visits went down, and our closing rate went up to about 50% because we already knew they could do it if they wanted to when we got there.
Right.
So what are some things that a potential buyer or seller would need to, let's say a buyer, they're going through the process, you're in earnest period, and you've got all this stuff like from the bank that is required or whatever. Like, what are a few nuggets that they would need to know going through that process?
So it depends if they're 1099 or W-2.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna get into this.
Oh, man.
Holy moly!
If you're 1099,
I just
Oh.
ran into this problem. So a guy I've been working with for 3 years, he just got let go of his job. He's already got another one that's doing pretty much the same thing, but he's W-2 to 1099.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
It's hard.
and he's been looking for 3 years, trying to find him a house, trying to find him the perfect deal for him. And
If you are 1099 and you're out there and you're listening to this and you're trying to buy a house, get ready. If you do not, at the end of the year, if your taxes don't show a bunch of income, and if you haven't done it for a bunch of years, you're going to have a hard time.
You need at least 2 years.
Yeah.
But so I actually have a good friend of mine that he was looking at selling his house, and he's 1099, so he was expecting to be able to sell his house this year, buy a new one,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote everything off, so it only showed like a little bit of income, so not able to get approved.
Here's a hack,
Wow.
guys, and I had to do this when we bought our first house. Our first house that my wife and I bought, a long time, 2005. Guy calls me and says, "Hey, do you want to buy my house?" And I said, "Absolutely, I can't afford it though." He said, "I'll finance it for you." I was broke as a joke, bro, living on love. And he said, "I'll finance it for you until you can get a bank to do it." Awesome, I'm in. Great. Okay, so he financed it for us for 2 or 3 years. And then we went to a bank to get a loan. Could not get approved because I own my own business. So at a certain point, I had to, if you're 1099, I'm just going to break it down to you in this way. If you're 1099, start an LLC to where whoever is paying you that 1099 money goes into an LLC. And then from that LLC, pay yourself a W-2 wage. That's going to be the quickest and easiest way for you to actually get approved by a bank.
That's what I do with my real
Okay.
estate company.
Otherwise, you're going to be jumping through a bunch of hoops.
And
Or-
it's a tax break now.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a tax break for sure, and you know, you need to build a relationship with a local bank.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to recommend.
100%. I mean, Community Bank probably gave me loans, you know, when I was young that they, you know, wouldn't give the regular Joe.
Wow.
That they had the
And they
trust
still
factor.
do.
Well, I mean, just because, you know, the income wasn't there. Some of it's risky.
Yeah, but
And-
why did they decide to take a risk on you?
Well, I think, you know, I've been there a long time, and my dad, before he passed away, he did a lot of business with Community Bank.
Yeah.
And, you know, he talked to him before he did pass away and said, you know, take care of my boys. And they've honored that, and I can appreciate
awesome.
that, that he, you know, that the bank has taken some risk to hold, you know, loans that they may not do for everybody, but they know the determination that we have to make it work.
You built a trust. Your dad opened that door, and you built the trust
Right.
factor.
Right.
That's awesome. Guys, let's jump into, from a real estate agent perspective, you guys have a lot of things that you have to stay on top of to get a deal done. There's a lot of T's to cross, I's to dots, and they're coming at you from all angles at all times. What are y'all doing? And if you're not doing them, what do you know that you need to do to optimize some of those things so that you can focus on what's actually making you the money and not have to do those low-end tasks that you know are low-end? Oh, like your eyes are going like, phew.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about
You're
staying
new, so-
organized,
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to what we talked about in the last episode. I'm a big fan, as are these two guys, of writing every single thing down. And I got it from him. He has a whiteboard in his office. He writes all his closings. He writes
Yeah.
his dates down. So when I first started, I had one deal. Well, last month I closed $1.1 million. I had 6 deals going at one
Yeah.
time as an agent, and I was at the time 3 months in. So I wrote every single thing down on a whiteboard. That way, every time when I walk in my office,
See
I
it.
see a date. I say, okay, well, my option period's up on this date, which is a huge, huge thing as an agent. If you
Yeah.
screw up and you miss an option period, you cost somebody a lot of money. And at the end of the day, I'm going to end up covering the earnest money if they back out. So option period, close date, what are we waiting on? Appraisal, inspection, why are we waiting on it? Follow up. And following up, I think, is a huge deal with staying on top of people because people forget stuff.
And referrals.
Referrals, yeah.
Yeah, that's big.
If you walk into any of our offices and you see the whiteboard there, also something that it does for me at least is it triggers me. If I see that my board's getting skinny, I'm like, I need to go to work. I also put my potential listings. If I don't have, if there's a 0 up there, I'm going and beating doors to find a listing.
Yeah,
or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's when those calls happen. He's like, Shane, do you know anybody trying to sell something?
Hey, Shane, yeah, you got any?
Anything you need to sell? He's like going through my properties. Hey, do you want to sell that one? You ready to sell that one? You ready to sell that one? Like, no, I'm not. These are cash flowing.
Hey,
but
yeah, man.
You got to do it, right?
See,
you need to.
Yeah.
And that may trigger me to think, Jimmy told me he wanted to sell his house.
Well, you did that this year.
Did I?
Yeah.
Who'd
you and your wife.
in Hallsville, that one? Yeah.
You see, and I think investors are like a real estate agent's greatest asset because in times right now when nobody wants to buy, a lot of investors are jumping on it because you can get properties cheaper than you could last year.
I want to talk about that investor mindset from a real estate agent. When we started to get in the game, my wife and I started to get in the game, and my brother and some other partners, of wanting to invest in real estate, we had the hardest time, this is before I met you, we had the hardest time finding a real estate agent that understood real estate from an investor standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a hard thing to find, and great on you guys for actually doing it and being in it so that you can understand that game too, because you offer so much more to an investor when you're actually doing it yourself and understanding that game as well.
Oh yeah, 100%, because you know what your expectations are, and they're going to have the same expectations or greater. And I always let my investors know that I am an investor, but I'm not a competing investor. I'm not going to buy. So if we go look at a property and I think it looks good, I'm not buying. I'm selling it to you.
Right. Yeah. You have a big responsibility to maintain that relationship.
Right.
But it also helps our clients because we know what to look for when we're looking at a property. If we're walking a property with you and I see something that would throw a red flag to me why I wouldn't buy it, well, I'm going to point that out to you, where some agents that don't own investment properties and don't have the view of an investor, they don't see those things. They just walk in trying to make a sell.
That comes down to single family too, though.
Yeah.
You see a lot more problems in investment properties than you do in single families, so you're able to point those out a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. Let's go back to optimize a little bit. To do as much as you do, there's tasks that you have to optimize and outsource, right? At the moment, you don't have somebody working with you specifically, like a secretary or anything, right?
No, not right now.
Bailey, do you need a job?
I stay on him.
Okay.
I think Janti needs my guidance.
Okay.
For $25 an hour.
But there's got to be, not too long ago, we talked about your hourly rate, and I'm not going to say it, but you figured up based on what you make every year,
right,
and you divide it by how many hours you work in a week, you come up with, I make this per hour.
Right.
And everything that you do, you're comparing against that to make sure it's worth your time.
Correct.
Not in a stupid way or a boastful way or anything like that, but when we take on task, if you do all your own laundry and that costs you 2 hours a week, and you know you make this per hour, and you just said, I just spent this money doing my laundry when I could pay this money. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Outside, like your personal stuff, what are you optimizing or outsource? And then the things inside of real estate, what are those tell me some of those super low-end tasks that do not really provide a return and absolutely don't fill your cup.
I'll start that off with anywhere that you are, you can always be selling. Okay. That's one. Now, doing laundry, my beautiful wife won't let me touch the laundry because she says I mess it up. So I
wait. Do you mess it up on purpose?
Maybe. Maybe.
I get the same thing.
She's like, "Don't touch it." I'm like, "You want me to help you with the laundry?"
Like,
no, don't touch it.
You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to fold a towel right.
Sometimes you do things poorly in order to not have to do them at all.
Well, don't give the secrets away, okay? Listen, laundry at my house, I rarely do it, but there's, I've been married for almost 18 years. I've never complained about not having clean clothes. and I will never complain. If I don't have any underwear, it's a day without underwear, or I'm going to Walmart to buy some underwear.
You don't do the inside out trick?
No, I've never done that.
gosh.
I've never done that.
Tyler, you're cheap. I bet you do.
No.
But you know, like I equate that to like a haircut.
Yeah.
That's a lot of wasted time if you let it be wasteful. Yesterday, I gave the people that cut my hair some hoodies.
Sweet. Yeah,
You know.
that's awesome.
So if you can take those tasks and one, like, you know, eating lunch, if you know your hourly value, are you going to order that? And is it going to be worth your time to order that? Going to the grocery store, they have an Instacart.
Yeah.
So sometimes I really do like going to the grocery store because I can get what I need. But there are times when I don't have time. And so it's worth $10 to do that because I can be out prospecting. But again, if you go in the store and you see somebody, you talk to them, you know, I feel like you don't have to sell them, but by just engaging, you're selling.
It's branding.
Right.
Yeah.
It's branding. You're in front. You're in front of people. When they get to a point where they do want to sell something, they're going to typically remember the person that they've seen the most.
Right.
That's it.
And from our last episode, that's how I found Janti. When I was looking to get into real estate, I saw his face everywhere. You know, he's got the limo wrapped with his face on it. I mean, he's just everywhere. So I literally just called him up and was like, hey, you know, this is kind of where I'm at. This is where I want to be.
Let's go.
And,
Ready to sell.
Yep. And here we are, you know.
That's awesome.
Year and a half later.
You mentioned a haircut, and that kind of triggered something for me. I think it's important to view things from a few different lenses as far as guys that are as busy as us, or as we got a lot going on, right? There's always something coming at us. We also need to have those times of just quietness and silence and mindfulness. I use a haircut. Now, obviously, I have not done that in a while, but when I get a haircut, I use that as quiet time and mindfulness, and make sure I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb and having a conversation with the person that's right in front of me. I think that's so lost in today in our age, that when you get that from somebody sitting in this room right here, right now, we're totally focused on what we're doing. We're totally focused on the conversation between each other. It's freeing and relaxing because your mind is on one thing. This is not something that randomly happens. This is not a coincidence. This is how the Lord made us. It's part of our DNA.
Right.
And I've told this story to so many people. When we first met this guy at a house that we were looking to sell, he came out before rehab. We weren't even close to being done, right?
No, I think y'all were putting up that retaining wall, and
We're probably a month or two out.
Right.
I remember having a eye-to-eye conversation. I could hear his phone vibrating in his back pocket, but he didn't touch it, grab it, pull it out, nothing. It was, hey, I'm focused on you. This is what I'm here for. I'm making this a priority. And that was the first impression. And I think when we make first impressions like that on people, no matter what industry we are in, we're going to be the go-to, because it's so far-fetched in our world today to not be distracted.
Yeah.
Distraction is such a, I mean, we can all pull our phone up and scroll through, you know, Facebook or TikTok videos or YouTube videos and get lost in the wormhole for 3 hours. And do we feel any better? Do we feel any more fulfilled when we get done with that?
No, you honestly feel better when you're doing something like this versus doing that. I mean, you can look at all of our phones and they probably have calls and texts.
Yeah,
it's really hard to balance it. And sometimes you have to step back and say, I got to put this thing down for a minute.
Like, this is valuable. What we're doing here right now is valuable for other people watching.
Yeah.
And it's also valuable for us to really be able to focus on something.
But I think that's a key aspect in people that are, whatever your own definition of success is, but to be able to locate and lock in on a target and see nothing but that target and finish before you move to something else. I mean, I think that's a big key to being successful.
That's good. How many times have you guys been trying to get something done? Like, that's really important, and that, you know, it needs to be at the top of your priority list, but your phone just keeps going.
Well, as real estate agents, that's all it does. As a builder, that's all it does.
What if I just sat here in the whole podcast, y'all are talking and went, like, that's annoying and distracting.
Right.
There's studies out there that say that, and it's hard to do. It's hard to really live this way, but there's studies out there that say that if you can get locked in on a target it takes you about 28 minutes or 24 minutes. I don't know. It's up there, 20 minutes or so. If you get distracted during that, it takes another 20-something minutes to get truly locked back in. And have you guys ever had moments where you sit down to do something and you're totally locked in and you look up 6 hours later?
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're like, man, that was the most productive that I've been in 2 months.
Right.
And I got more work done in that 6 hours that I was locked in than I've got done in 2 weeks.
Well, and you have to. I think that a lot of times you can do that. Like me personally, I get up, I'll work for 2 hours, just pencil whipping stuff, and then I have to get up, walk around, take a break.
Yeah.
I'll make a phone call, and then, or whoever's called me, try to play catch up. But also you have to realize in the real estate game is it never shuts down. Mm-hmm. So that's the hardest task is trying to, I put mine on silent, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
At certain points because I'm like, I can't. I'm just going to have to play catch up.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
See, and especially with, which we don't have kids, but when you get home and you have to take care of kids and, be the family man, you can't necessarily just turn work off. So I think it's a balance thing as well.
All right, so my phone's ringing.
We're just talking
it on silent.
What is this?
Oh, I did. It's on do not disturb, but there's only the people on my favorites.
Sugar mama.
Only the people on my favorites actually come through.
Courtney's going to be upset. She sees this podcast and sees that you have a sugar mama.
I love you, baby.
Womp, womp.
I think you're actually on my favorites. Let's check and see if you're on my favorites because you would be one that comes through when I have my phone on do not disturb probably 4 to 6 hours a day. Look at there. You're on there. I'm not going to look at your phone.
He didn't want to miss a deal.
Yeah, I don't want to miss a deal. Guys, y'all got anything to add? Finish up?
I think that these two guys, honestly, first of all, I want to start. I didn't say it earlier, and I forgot. Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, today is Veterans Day. It won't be by the time people watch this, but
it won't be. But we did film it on Veterans Day, so I want to say that. But
thank you to the veterans out there. Appreciate you guys and the sacrifice y'all make.
Absolutely, these two guys work really hard. I help facilitate bringing them on. I think that they do great. They're honest and they care about their clients. And if you're needing somebody that's full time, any of us, these two guys, be happy to help you. And even if you just want some knowledge about what's going on and you're not going to buy or sell right now, call one of us because we can help you. It doesn't matter if it's today or a year. We thoroughly love doing this. And so it's not about making the money right then. It's about meeting people, growing connections, and helping.
I love it. So if somebody's actually looking to sell right now, would you rather them call Tyler, Bailey, or you?
I'd rather them call Tyler and Bailey and let them co-list it.
Okay, all right, do it. Do
These
it.
guys will get it taken care of, and if they don't get it taken care of, they'll hear from me.
That's when it rolls up the chain to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are going to have some co-listing coming up. Yeah, get ready for that. You're going to have to work together.
Yeah.
They work together well, or are they like brothers?
No, they actually do. They went and played golf yesterday, like little school kids, and we're I think Tyler missed a bunch of shots.
I definitely outshot him.
Happens every time.
So, I shot a 78. He shot like a 112.
No, don't.
That's
wow.
That's a good thing about our company and Ramsey is it's like a family.
That's awesome.
And we like hanging out, and we can make things, we can get things done and have a good time.
Yeah,
let's do it. All right, appreciate y'all joining us today. If you would hit those buttons at the bottom, like, share, subscribe. And remember, love God, love others, and let your work reflect that. We'll catch you on the next one.